Hey guys, Troubletcat here with the first of these will hopefully be a kind of semi-regular thing, at least in the future. I'm not going to be, sorry, I need to keep my voice down a little bit. I got somebody sleeping in the next room, but uh, this is the time that I feel inclined to do the video. I don't even quite read the clock over there, but it is about 3 o'clock in the morning here in beautiful Sydney, Australia, and this is the first of a new sort of series of videos. I hope this will be kind of a regular thing called Reviews from the Chair, where basically I play a video game. So right now you're thinking, how is this different from my other videos? No, I play a video game, and then as soon as sort of I've got a moment to sit down and I'm feeling ready to talk about the game, talk about my impressions of the game, I do that. So these are my initial reactions to these games. You know, they're not reviews where I sit down beforehand and like tease out all this stuff about, all this like really analytical stuff about the game. These videos, the idea from these videos is just sort of really natural ad-lib kind of review of a game that I've played recently, and then I'm feeling like talking about. I'll probably do these for quite a lot of games because the idea is that they're quick, easy to make, sort of fun little videos that inform people about a variety of games they might not otherwise know about. So I think you get the idea, so we'll just get straight in there without any kind of further ado. This video is going to be about Alan Wake, which I guess I was really interested in Alan Wake when it was first announced. It looked really cool to me. I was a big fan of Remedy because of this game and Max Payne 1, but especially Max Payne 2 is a fantastic game, and Alan Wake was their next game. And aside from that, I really liked the way the game looked. They were going for sort of a Twin Peaks kind of vibe, and I mean, I love Twin Peaks. I'm really into horror stories, that kind of stuff. And I thought the technology behind the game they were advertising looked really cool. They were talking about new physics simulations and how they were building like this really big part of I guess the Pacific Northwest and all this cool stuff. This technology looked really good. So I was a little bit surprised when the PC version was canned and it became a 360 exclusive. And I don't have a 360, so I didn't get to play it, and it just kind of fell off my radar entirely. But recently, I guess, like a couple months ago, it came out on Steam on PC. They finally, like years, the game came out in 2010, so it's like 2 years after the game came out. They released this PC version at a nice low price point. I think it was $40 here in Australia. I mean, it'll be the same as the US price, but that's a really cheap price for a game here. So I figured, you know what? I was interested in this game for a while. It fell off my radar. I want to pick it up and try it out, and I did. And I guess I finished it last night. This is the first time I sort of felt like ready to sit down and go and like jam, man, and talk about the game. But I guess it's a little bit hard to say where to start. I guess, to be honest, when I look back in the game, there's a few things that stick out in my mind, and those are probably generally be what are you get in these reviews. But the one that, having finished the game last night, really sticks out in my mind is the ending fucking sucked. And I hate starting on a negative because there's a lot of things to like about the game, and I start hating on such a big downer, but I mean, I don't want to, there will be no spoilers in any of these reviews. I won't talk about the plot of a game aside from in very broad terms the first few chapters, so don't worry about that. I'm not going to give any spoilers. Just in this case, I want to say I felt like the game didn't have a conclusion. They were going, and it stops, and there was something more. It was the same thing with Mafia 2. I did a text review of that a long time ago. Mafia 2 is a great game, but the ending, the game wasn't over. It wasn't finished. There was no sense of a satisfying conclusion of any kind of resolution, and that always, no matter how good a game is, and I mean, I still maintain Mafia 2 is a very good game, but no matter how good a game is, that always leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And again, Mafia 2, a good game, but when I look back on it, I still, I always think, oh man, Mafia 2, that was a fun game, that was a great game, but that fucking ending, man. And I think it's going to be not quite the same with Alan Wake, because Alan Wake is not as good a game as Mafia 2 was, I don't think. Alan Wake is a game that there are some things that I liked very much and I thought were fantastic, pitch perfect, beautiful about the game, and there was also, I guess, one really big issue with the game that hurt my enjoyment. But since we just mentioned the ending, which was not the really big issue I just meant. That there was an issue to do with the gameplay that was throughout the game. Since we just mentioned the ending, and that was sort of a downside, let's talk about what I did like about the game first a bit. The game looks great. Their engine, the graphics, it's fantastic. They've built this town, Bright Falls, and some of the sort of surrounding countryside in the Pacific Northwest, and it feels very real oftentimes. It's very majestic, and I really did enjoy it. I wish there had been more sections, or any sections. The game's very linear. I wish there had been sections of the game where you were more free to explore the Bright Falls and the countryside around it. I wish there had been more of this kind of open world aspect to it, because they built such a beautiful environment and such a realistic feeling environment that I really wanted the chance to get involved in there and check out the characters and stuff like that. And I'm kind of sad they didn't have that, but at the same time, what is there is very good. I mean, that's not like a strong criticism. It's just that I guess how I'd phrase it is, what was there in terms of the game environment and the characters and the world they built was so engaging that I wanted to see more of it. It's not an open world kind of game. That's not a criticism I'm trying to put on it. What I'm trying to emphasize is that it was so good, it was so pitch perfect that I wanted more, which is a very strong point. And I mean, aside from that, as I mentioned, the graphics engine is great. The sound is very good. So they've got these wonderful environments that are really brought to life by this pretty damn fine engine. That was fantastic. I got a real kick out of some sort of bits of humor and stuff here and there in the story, like bits of meta humor and stuff like that I won't spoil. That was a really nice thing. And in general, I got a kick out of the story. It's this kind of very Stephen King or vaguely David Lynchian when he's not completely losing his shit, but just kind of losing his shit kind of thing. And as I said, I won't go into any detail about the story, but it's this kind of like real mindfuck / horror story / thing. It's good. It's a cool story. There are some parts where the exposition goes by a little bit too quick, I feel. I mean, I like to think that I'm not a stupid guy. I can follow most stuff, and I followed Alan Wake, but there were parts where I felt like they could have exposited a bit more at length, so that you were a little bit more comfortable with the plot elements they were introducing. But at the same time, keeping things moving at a snappy pace isn't bad, and we'll get to later on, a big problem the game had was to do with pacing. So I guess in some ways, no, I'll stand by that. I feel like there are some points that were rushed over that maybe could have used a little bit more attention. But for the most part, the characters are very strong. The voice acting is good. The script is, for the most part, good. And when the script is not good, which is mostly, and you find these manuscript pages around the game that are supposedly a story that Alan Wake, the character you play as, who's a writer, you find these manuscript pages that are meant to be part of a book he was writing, and the writing in those is bad. But the game's actual dialogue and stuff is fine, so I kind of get the impression that this was intentional. This was kind of a stab at writers like Stephen King and stuff like that, who, I mean, it's not to say the writing was terrible, but it was very cliched, very heavy on, on these kinds of, like, horror, thriller, novel cliches and stuff like that, and I felt like that was kind of a stab at the genre, and in fact, a lot of the things about the plot, when it gets sort of at its weirdest and convoluted, and you're kind of going, I felt like it was kind of taking the piss out of the genre, and I really like that. As somebody who's a big fan of horror films and just kind of weird shit in general, I got a kick out of that, out of the fact that it's telling a story that is legitimately a good and interesting story, and it's a good example of the genre in some ways, and in other ways it's kind of pointing out the things about the genre that are a little bit sort of funny and a little bit flunky, don't quite hold up. And I got a real kick out of that. I thought the story was great, and all that stuff was fantastic. And you might be sitting there thinking, well, this game sounds really fucking great. Why did you say it's not as good as Mafia 2? I mean, you said the same thing about Mafia 2. The thing about Mafia 2 was I liked the gameplay a lot more in that game. In Alan Wake, the gameplay is... I don't actually want to say that it's not good, because basically they had this novel idea for how you fight the enemies, where you kind of have to burn off like basically a shield kind of thing with your flashlight and then shoot them. Um, that I thought would make the combat really drag and feel really sluggish and nasty and stuff like that, but actually it doesn't. When you get, especially when you get later on, you get some sort of more powerful flashlights and better special weapons, that kind of stuff. The combat gets this nice flow to it in certain sections and feels really good, and at other times it does become kind of a chore, as I thought it would. So that's, the combat is, the system is okay, but Remedy sometimes made it work and sometimes didn't. And the times they didn't are probably more than the times they did. And I gotta say, like, my favorite parts of the game were the parts that were a little bit less combat intensive and a little bit more focused on exploration, on telling the story, and on sort of, I guess there's not really many puzzles in the game, but mostly focused on exploration and advancing the plot and stuff like that, as opposed to the straight combat, now that I think about it. And so, the beginning of the game I felt was really weak. You're in these like dark forests, and it's all very linear, and the combat isn't quite popping at the beginning. And then, around, I guess, about a third of the way through the game, things pick up. It gets a lot better. There's these much more exciting pieces of combat. The exposition, the storytelling becomes a lot more interesting and involved. They introduce these new layers, and you get into the game, and then, you know, it stays that way for a while. It maintains that for, like, I guess maybe the middle third of the game, and then towards the end, again, I started losing interest, and I was losing interest and stuff like that, and I stopped playing for a long time, actually, because it wasn't that anything about the game made me angry or anything, just my interest was, it started out low, but I was like, okay, well, the game looks nice, I can see, like, the voice acting and stuff is okay, so we'll give it a chance, and I gave it a chance, and eventually we got to this good part in the middle that I was thinking, yeah, fuck yeah, this game is working, this is what I was looking for, and, you know, some of the stuff near the beginning of Max Payne, you know, the games weren't great all the way through, but Remedy nailed like 85% of the game, so it was fine, you know, and I forgave the bits in the Max Payne games that were kind of iffy, and ended up, like, as I said, this is actually one of my favorite games of all time. This would be in my top 10, Max Payne 2. I'm really looking forward to Max Payne 3, by the way. If they fuck it up, I will murder somebody. But, so I really wanted to give Remedy this chance because I loved their previous games, and I knew that, you know, just because there's some iffy parts doesn't mean it's all bad. So we got to this middle part, and I really enjoyed it. And then when that dropped off again, I kind of felt like, oh, back to this shit, you know, and I lost a lot of my motivation to play. So, you know, I took a break from the game for a long time, which isn't something you want, especially, I didn't feel like the game was too short. It took me about 15 hours to complete it, which is right around the bare minimum I'd want for, like, a full-price game, but since it was, you know, not super expensive, it was fine. And, I mean, there's actually 2 additional episodes that I didn't play yet, because they're like the DLC episodes. I'm just talking about the main game. Because, you know, I don't feel like the DLC should really be included in the review, I guess. Yeah, and that wasn't good. And then to have this thing where I lost this desire to play. Yeah, I guess it wasn't the last third when it got bad again. But towards the end, things get really rough again. And then I eventually, you know, sat down and got through it because I thought, well, you know, I should finish this game because the story, I know the gameplay's getting a little bit dull, but the story's cool and I want to know what happens. And that was the impetus, the drive for me to eventually sit back down and finish this game off. And then the ending being as bad as it was, as half-baked, made that a real kick in the teeth. So it's this real kind of mixed blessing game for me. And I'd recommend people I want to recommend people buy it because, I mean, overall, I'm glad I played the game. That's, okay. That's the closest thing to a, like, out of 10 rating or anything like you're going to get in this video is I'm glad I played it. It wasn't a bad game, and I liked the experience of the story for the most part. I think it was a game that was worth my time. I might have preferred if I'd only paid 20 or 30 bucks for it, not 40, but I'm glad I played it nonetheless. So, I mean, I don't think it was bad, but there were all these things about it that didn't quite sit right. So, I guess if I was going to recommend this game to people, what I'd say is, you know, I don't know if I would recommend this wholesale because I think a lot of the reason I enjoyed it so much was because I had this pre-existing appreciation of horror films and of like I love Twin Peaks, and that influenced a lot, and I felt this sort of connection to the themes and environments in the game that won't be there for everybody. So what I'd say is that this game has a good story, it's got good voice acting, it's got beautiful graphics and environments. There are a lot of things to like about it, and when the gameplay works, the gameplay is good and solid, but it only works for about like sort of the middle third of the game, sort of the middle portion of the game, and the beginning and end are really dodgy. So I guess what I'd say is this game is worth playing if you are like me, if you're somebody who, like me, appreciates this sort of genre of work, is interested in these kinds of thrillers and stuff like that. You know, if you like sort of weird mystery stories and thrillers and horror and stuff like that. I felt like the game had too many jump scares. You know, as I said, I watch a lot of horror movies. It's not like I'm like some squeamish guy that's like screaming at everything and stuff like that. But I feel like jump scares are just this really cheap thing. Like, I mean, my favorite horror movies use them sparingly, if at all. And the reason I don't like them is because I feel like it's a cop-out. You know, if I want to be scared because something scary happened or because there's something disturbing going on or something like that, I don't want to be unsettled. I want that adrenaline. It's not the right way to put it. I want that adrenaline pumping feeling. You know, your heartbeat gets up and you get a little bit excited and stuff like that. I want that to come from suspense and drama and actual horror, not from like, oh, there's a loud fucking noise suddenly that I wasn't expecting, and now my heart's beating really fast and I feel like uncomfortable, but there's no good reason for it. Just fucking shit flying out your mouth. So I did feel like the game had a few too many jump scares. I'll mention that. If you're somebody who really hates jump scares, this game just has these really unnecessary things. It would just be like walking along the forest and be like, the forest is nice. Turn off some lights because give you guys a bit more of the atmosphere. Wow, it's still really bright in here, but God damn it. Okay. So, you know, you'll be like chilling, you know, you'll be like, I'm in the forest, it's nighttime, and I'm killing the zombie ghosts. And then suddenly, for no fucking reason, it's like, you're like, fuck! And the game it doesn't earn those scares. And that was some really gratuitous fucking bullshit for a review. I apologize, folks. I hope it was worth it, but I somehow doubt it. Anyway, the point is, my complaints aside, and my complaints are substantial. There are a lot of problems with the game, as I mentioned, particularly in that there's these pacing issues, and the gameplay is really hit or miss. And by really hit or miss, I mean it's more miss than hit. But I'm glad I played it, and I recommend it if you're somebody who's interested in the horror genre, interested in thrillers. Go and check it out. Get the game, or maybe wait for it to go on sale and pick it up. Because, as I said, it's not hugely long. It's long enough, but it's not enormously long. And glad I played it. Wish the execution had been a little bit better for such a nice concept. Such a nice contrast. Such a nice concept. So I guess that's all for now, folks. I hope you liked the video. I hope it was informative. Let me know what you thought of it. If you played Alan Wake, let me know what you thought of Alan Wake in the comments below. And until next time, thanks for watching. Troubletcat. Living in eternal darkness.